If you've done craft markets more than once or twice, you know that they're not all the same. One day could be the best market of your career, and then the next one could be the worst. No matter how much you try to plan ahead, it can go either way on any day. The same market could be great one day and then terrible the next weekend. I'm going to call them markets from here on. I think craft fair is a little bit dated or a different thing than what I try to do. Throughout my career doing markets, I have had my share of ups and downs, but the ups and downs aren't always money related, although they can be. Today I thought I would tell you the story of my most recent market and how it went very wrong. This was the first time that I have ever made a net loss at a market in my career. When I talk about how much money I made at a market, it's not just taking how much revenue I had minus the booth fee, because that's not all your costs and expenses associated with that. A lot of the ones I do around here, you'll have to pay for parking, and then of course you have your labor and material costs and your other expenses like your transaction fees for your credit card payments and the overhead costs of running your business, which are difficult to calculate for that. I don't pay myself hourly for the time I'm at the market, although I do need to consider that, especially if I am going to maybe hire someone in the future to help. I would need to pay them hourly. So I need to be able to do that, and I need to make enough money to be able to do that. I just pay myself the labor rate for the products that I sell plus a portion of the profit. And that depends on how much the profit is, because if it's not much, then I can't really pay myself. If you ask 100 different market vendors what their good day looks like, they're going to tell you something different. They might say they want to 3x, 4x, 5x, even 10x the booth fee, which can be a good indicator of how much you've made, but also it just depends on everybody's needs. If somebody that does this part-time, 2x, 3x the booth fee would be great, but you know, if you're full-time, you need a little bit more than that. Especially if you're sitting out there for 8 hours and then it takes you 2 hours to set up, an hour to tear down. But making money is not the be-all end-all for a market. It can be more valuable to network with the other vendors and see where they're going, or if they have suggestions or markets that they've done really well at. And then hopefully the event coordinator is actually walking around talking to people, because you can really learn a lot from them. In case you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm going to explain a bit more in detail in a future video, but I'm remaking these key fobs. A lot of people asked for them. They sold okay online for a little while, but then they kind of died off, I guess because I didn't promote them. But the method that I used to make them is not good. So I am fixing it, and I'm trying to sell through this hardware that I have. This hardware is not great because it just clamps the fabric. It doesn't actually attach it. So I'm going to sell through the ones I have and make them as strong as possible. And then I'm going to switch to a different method that's going to be a little bit more reliable. But I just need to get rid of these. I don't want to just toss them if they're usable, you know, so I'm going to sell them at a pretty good discount once I get that done. But then I have some more hardware that I don't want to just give to somebody else, so I'm going to make some more with this new method. Hopefully it works. Well, I know it does work. Hopefully it's, they sell, I'll say that. Like, I took them all apart. I should not have been able to take them all apart as easily as I did. Because somebody at a market just popped one open and they were like, oh, here you go, this broke. I was like, dag nabbit. That was my final straw. I was like, I am fixing these. But now I'm going to dig through and find fabric to make with these extra 15. I'm not going to name and shame this market. It is actually a well-known place for makers to do things here, so it's not entirely their fault. Like I mentioned earlier, it is valuable to network with other vendors and see where they go. So I saw that one of the vendors that I worked with before was doing a spot at this market, and they were accepting applications for the season. And I was like, okay, I'll just put my name in and see how it goes. They're on Sundays, so most of my other ones are on Saturdays. It's not going to conflict. If I want to do them, great. If not, whatever. And the booth fee is only 25 bucks. I can't be that bad, you know, if I do that. I just hadn't really seen them market it, which should have been a red flag, but I was like, it's only 25 bucks, whatever. And they do them every other weekend, so I thought maybe this could be a regular spot that I could go to, relatively inexpensive, and I could set up somewhere where people could find me. Because you don't always get that opportunity unless you get in with the farmer's market, which the ones around here don't seem to have many crafters, or they do them on rotation, so like the same person's not going to be there every weekend. Which is fair. It keeps it fair for other people that want to do it, but it's like I want a spot that people can come find me at, and I don't have to pay rent for a storefront, because I cannot afford that. But I thought I was out of this fabric because I sold key fobs with this, and I thought I was totally gone. Okay, well, I'll use that. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked trying to focus on what pieces are going to fit some kind of motif in this 1-inch strip. These would go well. I wanted to save this for something else, but it's just hard because you can't get everything in there. Like the print is small, but it's far apart. I've ended up doing 2 markets there. The first one was not too bad, but there was definitely some red flags that I should have heeded. So I talked to some other vendors there, and the other vendors that were at the first one I did seemed a little bit more like they did this professionally, so I had high hopes for the rest of the markets. Like, it was kind of odd to me that the fee was only 25 bucks because of the other vendors that were there, but I think maybe it was their first time also. So this was put on by a local store, not the one that I just posted about that I'm actually in, but a different one that's similar. And they had a space right by their door for like the featured creator, and I think you pay a bit more for that spot because people are going to be going in and out of the store and they'll see your stuff. But then the rest of us were down this corridor that is directly underneath of a bunch of very large high-rise apartment buildings. So like thousands and thousands of people live there, and we're going back and forth with their groceries and like with their dates on Sunday and whatnot. So I was like, okay, this could be a good spot because people are just walking by here anyways. But that's not always a good thing because they're not there to shop. They're walking home from work or going to work or bringing the groceries home, so they're not going to stop. If somebody was outside of my house selling stuff, I would be like, this is weird, like, go away. So I totally understand that people wouldn't stop. And on the other side of the block was a bunch of shops and restaurants and all kinds of busy stuff going on. So I thought maybe that would be great, but people weren't walking that way because it was just apartments. So not a great location. Great in theory, but in reality, not so much. And I guess people that lived there maybe didn't know that was going on. They could have advertised it a bit more. I honestly don't recall seeing any advertisement of that specific market going on Sundays, except for like during the market they might have posted a video on their story on Instagram. There was no Facebook event that I saw. There was no post on their Instagram feed or anything about the markets, so that kind of like... At the first one I did, somebody mentioned that. They're like, I don't think they advertise this very much. And they had classes going on inside of the store the same time that the market was on, but I did not see anyone leave the store and come toward the market. So like even the people that were there didn't really know that it was there. I don't know. The next red flag is that even though the contract said that you have to have adequate weights on your tent, there was vendors showing up with no weights. And it was very windy. They even said in the thing like, hey, this is a windy area. You need to make sure your stuff's weighed down. If you have lightweight items, find some way to secure them because they're going to blow away. And people showed up with no weights at all. And they were allowed to set up. I have craft event insurance because it was required by a few of the markets that I've done. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll just do the monthly plan. And I'm glad that I have that because I could have lost my tent and everything because of somebody else's negligence. And I ended up giving one of my weights to somebody that was next to me just so their tent didn't take mine out. The first weekend I didn't see the coordinator at all. People that worked at the store came around, but didn't really have anything to do with the market. It was somebody else, so I guess they weren't there that day. But then the second time they were walking around and asking if anybody needed anything, and then somebody didn't have weights and they didn't say anything, so I don't know. Like, they specifically told the coordinator that they forgot their weights or they didn't have any or something, and that was fine. I don't know. So that was a massive red flag and was going to keep me from doing the event a third time because of that not requiring the weights, because that is very dangerous because the wind was pretty fast. I know it's easy to forget stuff if it's your first market or whatever, but like, you have, like, that's a liability issue, and also like you don't want to hurt somebody whether they sue you or not, and it damages your own property as well if your tent goes flying through the air, or if your stuff gets blown off of the table because it gets knocked over by somebody else's tent. If you're taking notes, if you're new to markets or haven't done one before, you don't need sandbags necessarily because those are so expensive, just the bag. Then you gotta deal with the sand, and like I put pea gravels in my sandbags at first because I thought it would be easier. Over time, if it's not sand in those bags, it's gonna wear out the material of the bag and make holes in it. And I've had to patch them before because it's cheaper than buying a whole new set. And everybody that had problems with their tent, despite having weights, had those stupid little hockey puck looking weights. Don't bother with those. Those are expensive anyways, and they're only like 10 pounds a piece. The requirement for this market was 40 pounds per leg, and some people barely had those hockey puck things that were only 10 pounds. And that's not enough anywhere. Like, your tent is it's going to catch the wind up under it. It's like a sail. So you need something more substantial than that. Even if it does okay for a little while, eventually the wind is going to rock the sides of the tent, the legs, and they're going to walk themselves out of those hockey puck things because they have an opening on one side for you to slide the leg through. So you need more than that. Like at minimum 2 of them so they lock together and keep the leg in place. But even that's so expensive. And I've seen tutorials and stuff about how to make your own with concrete and PVC. That's baloney. Don't waste your time doing that and get everything messy. The cheapest and easiest thing you can do is go get some cinder blocks. You don't need to fill them with anything. They're just there and heavy. They're like 20-ish pounds. Just make sure you don't get the giant ones because I couldn't even lift the really big ones, but just the ones like this big or so. Depending on the area of the world and the country you're in, cinder blocks are like $3 a piece. I paid $3 a piece for mine. I bought a few extra that I just left at home in case one of them broke somehow, because I've seen broken ones at the store and they already have a hole in them to wrap a strap around. So it's a no-brainer to use cinder blocks. They don't look that pretty. If you want to, you can have a curtain around your tent legs and kind of cover them up, but nobody really cares. That it's fine. Ratchet straps are going to be a little more expensive, but there are tie-down straps that basically do the same thing. And I got a set of those at Home Depot for like $12 or something. So all in all, it cost less than $20 to get adequate weights. Although I already had 4 sandbags, so you might need 8 cinder blocks if you're going to do that method and it's really windy. But the important thing is to attach them to the roof of your tent. Just putting the sandbags or those hockey puck things around the feet of the tent is not going to cut it, because the top of your tent is going to move and that's going to be scary and you're going to think that it's going to take off, okay? And that's going to put stress on those extension parts of the legs and it's going to put stress on the top of the tent, so you don't want to do that. You want to strap them to the top. So you know how when you open the tent, there's the very top and there's a piece underneath that slides up and down and then latches in place when it's all the way open. Do not put it on the bottom one, put it on the top one. Not the one that goes up and down, because you're going to stress out that little pin. Just put it on the very, very top, hook it in there, and then tighten the strap, and you're good. The more you can spread out the cinder blocks, like at an angle, the better. If it's straight up and down, it's still going to help, but if you can spread them out just a little bit, if you have room, that's ideal. So that way it doesn't move in any direction. That's all I'm going to say about that. You need to strap down your freaking tent. You just can really hurt somebody if a tent comes flying at them, and you're liable for that. Especially if you don't have insurance. And the problem with that event in particular, the last one that I did with them, was that it was the Sunday before Memorial Day. So people were out at cookouts or just making travel plans, taking time off of work to get stuff done. You know, they weren't really looking to shop and browse around, you know. And despite it being in the same location as the last time and it being around thousands of apartment units, there was not as much foot traffic, like by far. So that contributed to the lack of sales, because obviously if people aren't there, they can't see it. Aside from all of that, what really solidified this being an event that I'm not going to do again is that there were 2 vendors adjacent to me that were hawking. I don't know what else to call that. It's like when you go to the mall and those people in the kiosks are like, hey, do you need something to straighten your hair? Or they're like, hey, do you need me to clean those sneakers off for you? And I get that shoe thing constantly because my daily shoe is Air Force Ones. And they're always like, hey, you need something to clean them forces? But the booth across from me and next to me were both standing out in the aisle or just sitting there and being like, hey, come try our products, or we got such and such product. And that same booth had another guy show up that was kind of working with them, and he would be like, hey, can I get your opinion on something? That seemed to work. People would try their hand cream or lotion or whatever it was, and they made a few sales that way. But then you had the people on the other side of the aisle saying what they had and being more direct, like, hey, we got such and such product, come try it or whatever, come taste it. But then that left me sitting there with people walking by and not giving me a second glance because they were just trying to get away from the people that were hawking. So most people did not stop in my booth and not even look inside at all because they heard the people hawking from like down the block, and they were just trying to get home because they had to go that way. But that does seem inconsiderate to me as another vendor, because people are trying to escape. But there is a reason why a lot of markets don't allow that. Like basically they were pulling people away that were going to look at my stuff. Like literally I saw it happen before my eyes. They're just like, it's just so awkward. I get it that I'm an introvert and I don't want to be like hollered at like that in public, you know, but I get it. Times are tough. You got to make the money somewhere, but it was just inconsiderate to me and other vendors nearby because they're just trying to make sales also. And you're literally scaring people away from their booth. And they weren't trying to holler at absolutely everyone. Like they kind of know their target demographic, people that might stop. But even still, like, once somebody heard that, they would just stop coming my direction. And there were a couple people, bless them, that would just tell those people that they would come back, and then they would kind of like turn around and come to my booth and check it out, and then just not come back. So if they don't contact me again about doing another market, I'm not upset about it. Despite the issues that I've had with this market, at this last one I did meet a couple that I spent quite a bit of time talking to that came out to my booth, and they actually were planning a wedding, and they were going to get some non-paper towels to use for their wedding favors. I was like, what? Like, of all the things, this market has been terrible, and you guys found me and got something that you actually needed from me. You didn't know I was here, you didn't know who I was before this, so that was interesting. And they didn't even live there either. It wasn't like they were in one of the apartments. They said they lived in a different area, so I don't know how that happened. So if not for them, I would have lost quite a bit more money, but I ended up negative 64 cents. That was the first net negative of my career. Let me see what the first one was. It wasn't great, but let me double check because I don't remember. So the first market there was $53 profit. That first market there was actually the first one they had there of the season, so people didn't really know about it being a regular thing. My analysis at the time was maybe this will get better, and as people figure out that it's here regularly, when they're going to and from their house to like the grocery store or whatever, they're gonna kind of know. But then it just didn't work out that way, and with the safety issues and the sales tactics of the other vendors, I can't continue doing it. There was another local market that's actually really close to my house that was similarly inexpensive to vend at, and I did that one twice, but it just didn't, like, there wasn't much traffic at all. So I couldn't justify doing that one, which was on Saturdays, because I might have a better opportunity that comes up on Saturdays usually that would be on the same day as that. So I, would rather take my chances and get one that I'm going to make more money at than risk the smaller one. Because it feels kind of shady to me if I hold on to the one and get accepted to it and then another one comes up and then I cancel. I know people do that all the time probably, but I just don't feel right keeping it around in case I don't have another one, you know what I mean? And even though it might be 5 minutes from my house, I still have to pack everything up and set up because there's no place to pull up and unload. Like, I have to wheel stuff over, and it just is a bit too much effort for not much profit. It's pretty early in this year's season, but I am trying to focus my energy on preparing for holiday markets because that seems to be like foolproof almost if you can get into a big holiday market, because even when the economy is in the toilet, people spend money on Christmas. I would not mind being booked solid this November and December with holiday markets, because the one I did last year, I'm hoping I get invited back to. I just don't know when they're going to do that, because I kind of signed up for it pretty late in the year, like later than I would expect, because some holiday markets are already booked up in like spring. If you want to know more about my experience with markets and what I've learned at them and my tips for other people that are getting into it, I have a whole video about that called Almost Everything I Have Learned About Craft Markets or something. I'll put it in the end screen here, but let me know if you have had any similarly bad experiences with markets, because I've had other ones as well, like rain and my own snafus of forgetting things. Making mistakes is how you learn, so just get out there and try it.